If you stood on the shore of the lake you are seeing right now, you would look fine. The water is blue, the trees are green, but inside your body, your cells would be tearing themselves apart. This is Lake Karachi. In 1990, standing here for just 1 hour would give you a lethal dose of radiation. Not a sick dose, a lethal dose. You would be dead within the week. For 40 years, this lake did not exist on any map. It was a blank spot, a forest that wasn't there. We talk about Chernobyl, we talk about Fukushima, but we rarely talk about the disaster that happened here. They didn't just hide the radiation, they hid an entire city. This is the story of the Kishtim disaster, the nuclear explosion that history forgot. To understand the lake, you have to find the city, but you won't find it on a map from 1950. Officially, it was called Chelyabinsk County. It was a closed city. In the Soviet Union, closed cities were prisons without walls. You needed a special pass to enter. You needed a special pass to leave. And you never, ever talked about what you did there. Inside City 40 was the Mayak Production Association. It was the heart of the Soviet nuclear weapon program. They were building the plutonium for the bomb that would destroy America. But making plutonium creates waste. A sludge of radioactive isotopes that stays hot for thousands of years. The Soviets poured it into the river. For years, they dumped high-level nuclear waste directly into the Techa River. The river flowed through 24 villages. People drank it, they bathed in it. When the doctors in the villages started reporting strange illnesses, they were silenced. They were not allowed to write radiation sickness on death certificates. Instead, they invented a new term. They called it special disease. By 1953, the engineers realized that killing the villagers was inefficient, so they decided to store the waste in tanks. Massive steel canyons buried 25 feet underground. Each tank was surrounded by concrete and kept cool by a water system. But radioactive waste generates heat. It boils itself. On September 29, 1957, the cooling system in Tank 14 failed. The sensors were broken, so no one noticed. At 4:20 p.m., Tank 14 detonated. The force was equal to 70 tons of TNT. It blew the 160-ton concrete lid off the bunker like a champagne cork. It threw a cloud of radioactive dust 1 mile into the sky. The cloud glowed red. In the nearby villages, people came outside to watch the glowing lights. They thought it was the aurora borealis. They didn't know they were watching their own death. The explosion at Kishtim is rated as a level 6 nuclear disaster. Chernobyl was a level 7. But unlike Chernobyl, there was no announcement, no news report. The military arrived quietly. They went from village to village, telling people to leave. They were told it was a training exercise. They were told to leave their clothes, their furniture, their pets. 10,000 people were evacuated, but they weren't told why. To keep the secret, the government had to hide the land itself. They couldn't clean it up, so they wiped it off the map. They created the URT, the East Urals radioactive trace, a strip of land 300 kilometers long that simply ceased to exist legally. For 30 years, the CIA knew something had happened. They saw the dead Earth on U-2 spy plane photos, but they said nothing. They were afraid that if they panicked the public about nuclear accidents, it would hurt the American nuclear industry too. So the silence was mutual. But they still had a problem. The waste was still there, and it was leaking into Lake Karachi. In 1967, a drought dried up the lake. The wind picked up the radioactive dust from the bottom and blew it over 500,000 people. They realized they couldn't just leave it. They had to bury it. How do you bury a lake? By 2015, the lake was gone. Today, if you go to the coordinate, you won't see water. You'll see a flat field of gray concrete. It looks like a parking lot in the middle of nowhere. But underneath the concrete, the special disease is still waiting. The Kishtim disaster proves a terrifying truth. There are people living in the Urals today who have genetic damage from an explosion their grandparents were never told about. The concrete over Lake Karachi will last for maybe 100 years. The waste underneath it will last for 100,000 years. We didn't fix the problem. We just put a lid on it and hoped the future would figure it out. So the next time you see a blank spot on a map, a forest with no roads, a lake with no name. Some places are empty for a reason.